millipede waiter laughed some more as I violently threw up any remnants of what was left in my stomach, but his laughter was cut short when I put a bullet through his head, causing his body to lurch over, sending his face into a pile of maggots. I quickly exited the buffet, trying and failing to return to any sort of composure. I had no fucking clue on what to do when a realization hit me. The roof. I recalled glancing out my window when the false me had attacked, and the view was the same as before, meaning there was a chance only the ground floor was buried. If I could make it to the top and gauge how deep the lower floors are buried, I just might have a chance of getting out of this hotel. I opted for the elevators this time, as I wasn't keen on seeing the aftermath of the stairwell man's jump, and surprisingly they seemed normal. That is until I stepped into one and the walls, floor, and ceiling began throbbing, and large, white teeth emerged at the doors. I had walked into a mouth. Before I could act, I was thrust upwards into a fleshy throat and blacked out. I awoke some time later to pleasant humming, and as my eyes fluttered open I gazed upon yet another horrific sight. The room must have originally been just another standard hotel room, but it had been cleared out for numerous small and few large torture devices. The main attraction was a massive torture rack, simple in its design but effective in its purpose, as I watched the current occupant's right arm slowly get ripped off as he screamed for mercy. His torturer was unsurprisingly another horrid being, but a familiar one. Wearing a very revealing dominatrix getup, and walking on nothing more than unnaturally long and exposed broken leg bones, was Liz, the maid I had run into earlier. Hearing me stir, she turned in my direction and smiled, kicking a lever on the rack behind her and releasing the tortured corpse to fall to the ground. "Mr. Harvey. Or should I say, Joseph? After all, we are about to get to know each other on a far more personal and intimate level." She purred, moving closer to me with more elegance than one could assume possible on shattered broken bone. It was like she was weightless, and the two bones protruding out of the ragged flesh of her exposed legs never seemed to be a hindrance. "How did I get here?" I asked, straining against my restraints. I was tied down to a bed with string, and she tapped her fingers along my chest, her nails long and caked with blood. I also noticed the string was weak. "You made a promise to me, Joseph, to interview me, and the hotel held you true to that. It deposited you here, right outside this room while I was cleaning up for another guest of ours. He was quite messy, so I needed to speak with him personally," she explained, nodding to the naked corpse on the floor by the rack. That's when I noticed my gun and bag on the floor near the bathroom, and a plan formed in my head. I decided to keep Liz talking. "What happened to you? To this place?" I asked, squirming slightly as she leaned on the bed with a smirk, basically laying her head on my stomach. "Joseph, you already know the answer. It's the whole reason you came. The Broughton Palace is haunted, so obviously you want the best haunted experience you can get, right?" She giggled, just barely digging her nails into my gut. "But this is real. Why is it real?" "Because authenticity is the best, and the Broughton Palace provides. Now, let's get started. We've wasted most of the night already. Before she could finish, I launched my knee up, crashing it straight into the side of her head. With all the strength I could muster, I yanked both hands free, tearing through my skin but ultimately freeing myself. I grabbed Liz by the head and kneed her again, this time in the face, and shoved her into the side of the wall as I hopped off the bed and grabbed my bag and gun, checking to make sure my ammo was still there. I turned to face the now bloodied and very pissed Liz, who noticed the gun in my hand. "You don't have enough bullets." She snarled and launched herself over the bed to pounce at me. 2 bullets went into her before I dashed out into the hallway, and when I slammed the door behind me I saw her getting back up. Strangely enough, however, when I made it back to a stairwell entrance, she wasn't following me. I then noticed the floor number I was on, 16, and my mind refocused on my original goal, the roof. So I sprinted and ran as hard as I could up flight after flight of stairs. I saw the chubby black man a few more times, but he seemed harmless, only wanting to beg for answers as to why and take a dive to the ground floor, only to show back up again a few floors up. I even caught a glimpse at other monsters that looked like the Featherman through those small stairwell door windows, sniffing about for their next victim. Eventually, I made it up to the top of the hotel, and after crashing through the door, I was greeted with a typical coastal city night sky. The town below was still glowing with lights from numerous bars and other stores still open. Cars moved up and down the streets occasionally. The bottom of the Broughton Palace even looked normal, with the lobby entrance definitely above ground. No, what the fuck? What the fuck? I stammered, staggering back as I ran towards the stairwell door. I darted inside and looked down the immense flight of stairs, and sure enough, the chubby black man was only a few flights down. He looked up at me, blood gushing from his arms. "Why?" he called up. "Fuck!" I shouted as I stormed back out onto the roof and lifted my gun into the air, firing all but one round into the night sky. Leaning against the side of the building, I started sobbing. Those bullets were my penultimate solution, a desperate attempt at maybe attracting the local authorities to my location and saving me from this hell, but I should have known it wouldn't be that easy. Glancing out into the dwindling night sky over the coast, I noticed something, or rather, 3 somethings. At first, it was only slight ripples in the water, but as daylight began to creep over the horizon, so too did 3 massive, solid back obelisks. Each one was identical, and each one had about 100 feet between them. I did not know what they were, nor their purpose, but the mere sight alone of them filled me with more dread than anything that had occurred during the night, as if they were composed of pure terror and fear and seeped that energy to any who dared look upon them. I weakly lifted my gun and fired the last bullet in their direction, and when nothing happened, I crawled up onto the edge of the hotel roof. The sun had almost fully risen, and the obelisks were almost at the beach. I did not want to see what horrors they would bring upon the world, so I took one look back at the hotel before sauntering off the edge, plunging 34 stories to the ground below. Screams and shouting filled my ears almost as much as the incessant ringing, as well as some unfamiliar voices. Jesus Christ, someone call an ambulance. Did he jump? Yeah, right off the fucking roof. He should be dead. Jesus Christ. A familiar voice appeared. Everyone, please back away. Medical officials will be here shortly to move him to a hospital. It was the receptionist. She should have been dead. That's when my eyes finally opened and I saw what was left of my mangled body. My legs were practically a red paste. One arm had practically broken off due to the impact, and the other one was somewhere twisted under me. Yug him off. I tried to speak, but only broken teeth, blood, and a piece of my tongue came out. The receptionist looked down at me worriedly, shooing the small crowd away as an ambulance pulled in. She crouched down beside me, smiling as the EMTs hurried in our direction. In an almost inaudible whisper, she leaned in and said, "I hope you enjoyed your stay at the Broughton Palace.